If you ever sat in a car before weigh-ins with a nervous wrestler and a half-empty water bottle, this episode is for you. Or if you think that if your child might join wrestler, she will have to wear 3 hoodies in a winter jacket every day regardless of the season to lose weight, this is also a place for you. Today, we are talking about wrestling nutrition, weight management 101, how to fuel for performance, make weight safely, and protect long-term health, especially for growing female athletes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Illinois Girls Wrestling Podcast, the show that strives to create a supportive community for Illinois girls wrestling through storytelling and expert insights so that athletes, coaches, and families feel connected and empowered. Can this podcast be helpful for boys? Absolutely. We are sharing a lot of great information about wrestling that boys can benefit from. However, we also wanted to create a place that the girls and their families can go to and call their own. I am your host, Lena Burkut, and today we will talk about weight, nutrition, and why is it harder for girls to lose weight comparing to boys? Unless I'm wrong and it works the other way around. Before we dive in, a quick but important note. This podcast is for education only. It's not a medical advice. Every wrestler is different, especially kids and teens that are still growing. Always talk to your doctor or a sport professional before making big changes to your nutrition or weight. In wrestling, weight classes can easily become the main character. Kids learn pretty fast what number is on a scale, and sometimes we forget that the real goal is performance, not just being as light as possible. Let's get a few things straight. Food is fuel, not an enemy. Wrestlers need energy to train, think clearly, and recover. Undereating makes practices feel harder, slows reaction time, and increases injury risk. Look at the whole season and not just one tournament. The best wrestlers usually have a realistic weight classes, solid habits, and stable energy all year, not a cycle of starvation and binging around every meet. And don't forget to hydrate. So if the focus is not about how little can I eat, what should we actually be doing day to day? To figure out this dilemma, I invited an expert. Today's guest is Coach Devin Tortorice, who has been a part of sports of wrestling for over 25 years, including 20 years as a competitive athlete. Devin was a 4-year starter at the University of Wisconsin Whitewater, where he was an NCAA qualifier, a 2-time academic All-American, and a team captain, competing at 141 and 149 pounds. He holds a degree in psychology with minor in coaching, and he also earned his sports nutrition certification through NASM. In 2023, Devin was nominated for the Female Coach of the Year and helped to lead Lakes High School to their first ever IHSA Girls State title. Today, he channels his experience and passion into Team Tortorice, the training program and club he runs with his brother out of Crystal Lake, Illinois. Welcome to the show, Devin. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, let's jump straight into the questions. And let's talk about everyday nutrition. For a parent who are new to wrestling, how do you explain the difference between fueling like an athlete and just being on a diet?
Yeah, so fueling like an athlete is going to be 1, sports specified, and 2, more specific to, that moment, pre-match routine versus, a diet is obviously going to be a generalized, do you want to lose weight, feel better? It's just, I think, a little bit more generalized goal, where feeling like an athlete is very specific. So you got to have specific foods 10 minutes before a match, 30 minutes before a match, or an hour before a match. You know what I'm saying? So that would be the biggest difference. Is it's just you're going to have to do a lot of timing before your practices, your matches, if you want to optimize your energy levels.
So for a wrestler, are we looking for both being on a diet between between tournaments, and then fueling, in a
Yes.
before and after?
Yeah. So, wrestling is ultra disciplined if you want to be successful. I don't want to put pressure on people, but that's just kind of the reality. So, yeah, you have to live both. You have to have a clean lifestyle for your day to day life, and then also know what makes me feel good before a match. How am I going to perform the best? So, yeah, absolutely. You have to kind of do both.
Great. So for somebody who is brand new to this, for young athletes and families, what do you want them to know about nutrition? You mentioned it a little bit. Can we talk a little bit more about it?
Kind of the specifics that I think is a good generalized rule for wrestling is one, definitely hydration. The last thing to ever be deprived as an athlete in a weight cutting sport, we'll talk specifically wrestling, is water. That's the last thing I want people getting rid of. So always stay hydrated. Keep up with that. High protein diet is really good when you're progressively trying to get your weight down. And then, fats and carbs before practices, before matches, to get that high glucose, even some sugar. Sugar's good to get that energy back into you.
Let's think about something that somebody can have on the go right before practice.
Yeah, the gold standard is honey right before practice if you are low on energy, if you're in the middle of a weight cut, because it's just such a natural raw sugar that it's going to pump you good and you'll feel good for at least, an hour. Typically the research shows, it's going to be about 45 minutes to an hour of a spike in your glucose.
And would honey be better than a candy?
Yeah, it's just it's a cleaner source.
Mm-hmm.
If we're really breaking it down, sugar is sugar. But if we're going for optimization, honey's kind of your cleanest, best option as far as just pure, sugar.
And after practice, protein shake or, I don't know, a chicken breast?
Yeah. So there's a lot of options. Protein shake is going to be pretty good. Again, if you're not in the middle of a cut, yeah, I'd say protein shake's really good because it's going to have a lot of carbs, a lot of high protein that really is going to fuel the muscle recovery.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also easier to have it on you.
For sure. Yeah, it's easy to take to go. You can, take it with you right before. What I would say is don't stress about the timing too much. There was this old philosophy called like the anabolic window that, you have to have it within 45 minutes or an hour. The research really says that that's not that important. It's minimal returns, put it that way. Okay. You can do it. It might help, but more than anything, end of the day, is just get in the protein, the nutrients. 1 gram per body fat is like a really good measurement for recovery.
Now let's talk about water. I know that's one thing that many wrestlers are very conflicted about. So, and
yes.
Again, now we're talking about just throughout the day, how much hydration do we actually need?
Yeah, so you probably hear it a lot. It's like you kind of want your pH, light color, almost clearish. If you have that going on and you're, urinating probably 3-4 times a day, I'd say it's a safe margin where you're definitely hydrated. Now that's obviously going to change as you cut down in your weight, but if you're in what I would say a high training mode where you should be consuming calories and intaking water, yeah, you need a clearish urination 4 times a day, if not more.
So let's say an athlete goes to the bathroom and goes, oh, well, that's not the right color. It should be lighter. So what do? Consume cups and cups or bottles?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to chug water. I mean, it'll technically work. You might not feel great if you do it before practice. But yeah, the simplest point is consume more water. You'll sometimes see kids walking around with a jug of water, like a gallon jug. That's, you're definitely going to be hydrated. I'd say that might be a little over the top, as for wrestlers, just because I know they're trying to manage their weight. But you really, if you're doing it properly, you could consume a gallon of water a day, and it will basically melt off of you. Is the expression I would use.
Would you add anything into water?
Yeah, if you just have water, you're technically hydrated, but you can actually flush out electrolytes. So any electrolyte powder is going to be great. It's not always necessary, but if you're feeling sluggish even after consuming a lot of liquids, then yeah, add a hydration mix. The basic is just get that sodium in. That's the number one. You need some sodium, but a lot of them will have magnesium and zinc and this, all those kind of extras.
Mhm. Great. How about salt? Can we just add salt to water?
Yeah, that's the sodium. Yeah, you can add literally just salt.
Uh-huh.
That'll be fine.
Okay, let's switch gears. Let's just talk about basic weight management. What would you
Mhm.
consider to be a safe weight loss? I know we are just in the beginning of the season right now, and a lot of people are trying to lose weight to get in those brackets, in the high school level at least.
Yeah, so the IHSA has its own progression of weight loss that every coach gets it, where it'll tell them how much they can lose per day. But the basic margin is technically about 1% of body fat per week is what's considered the safe optimal amount, where you don't lose muscle on top of it. So that's kind of where you'll get that term 1 to 2 pounds, because, a small individual will be about 100 pounds.
Mhm.
And then a larger individual is going to be, 200 plus.
Oof, okay. It sounds, and especially sounds very interesting because for most of us who are parents, many of us having a love and hate relationship with food and definitely hate relationship with weight. And I think we forget that our kids have a much different metabolism and they actually are able to lose and gain a little bit more.
So there's actually a funny thing, and a lot of people sometimes hate that I say this, but metabolism, all the research shows it actually doesn't really dip until well into your 50s, most people.
Mhm.
The only takeaway I would say is kids are really resilient. They bounce back very well. The recovery is really impressive. That is youth. But yeah, I say the number one dictating factor is lifestyle. And these, young athletes, they're just going all the time, right? They're training all the time. They're in school. They're active with their friends. And that's what allows them to, change their body structure very rapidly.
Well, and I also see the difference between my son and my daughter. I see that he's able to eat a lot more than she can. And then he loses also a lot more weight overnight comparing to her.
Yes, and that's true. Males have I would say a little bit better ability, just because lean muscle mass is a little bit easier for men to achieve, or young boys, and then girls, especially those if they hit puberty, water retention can be very difficult sometimes. So yeah, that is definitely a genetic factor.
Yes, and I find that very interesting, especially because right now my daughter and my son, they are in the same weight, plus minus 5 pounds.
Yep.
And, just one of them has to watch a lot more what she's eating comparing to her brother.
Yeah. If I may ask, how old are your children?
My daughter is 18, my son is 16.
Yeah. Your daughter is in that prime time of these poor girls, and the athletes, the girls that I coach. This happens. They'll work hard, and the weight is just a little bit sturdier to fall off. Water retention, especially during the menstrual cycle, is very frustrating for these girls. Bloating, all these things, and yeah, hormones definitely is a factor.
Mm-hmm. What, if ever, is intentional weight loss, and when is it appropriate for? And let's talk about high schoolers separately from middle schoolers and younger kids.
Mm-hmm. So let me repeat this. Just want to make sure I'm getting the answer correct. You're talking about when is appropriate for intentional weight loss?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So My philosophy, as a coach and a guy who's been in this for 20 plus years, you definitely want to focus on getting better first and foremost. If your emphasis is losing weight, then you're cutting too much weight. So the intentional needs to be, I want to be as competitive and big and strong as possible without like causing my training to lower. So that's that. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but the intention needs to just be my training is high. I feel strong. I feel athletic. Like that's where it needs to be.
And how is that different for the little kids? This week
Yeah,
we were checking the weights in our feeder club, and some of the kids, especially the bigger kids, they're trying to strip practically down to nothing to just, get a baseline of what their weight is.
of course. Yeah. So I'm sure you hear some of these horror stories, of kids losing tons of weight. And I've seen it. I mean, I grew up in the youth system. And I mean, I see, and this isn't a joke, a 60-pound kid going down to 52. 8 pounds is over 10% of their body weight. Like that's insane. So my point to that being is, especially at the youth middle school level, cutting weight needs to be minimal. I would refer to it more as managing weight, where, if a kid doesn't eat dinner, maybe he goes and works out. That's okay. He's going to be fine. But it definitely needs to be secondary to wrestling and the kid enjoying it. I mean, first and foremost, kids need to enjoy it. So to that being, cutting weight really should be minimal. It's managing weight. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And it's so many cases when it comes to the IKWF tournaments. In many cases, it is blocked weights. So does it really matter?
Exactly. No, it baffles me that there are parents out there, and I'm not calling out a whole state, but this is just in my own experience. State of Iowa really loves their wrestling, right? They're very passionate about it. It's kind of like Texas football. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've seen some really intense parents at these Iowa tournaments, and it really just doesn't matter that much. Nobody really cares if your kid won a youth tournament. They just don't. You care, that's it. But nobody really cares that much.
I do find overwhelming, the youth tournaments. I find youth tournaments very overwhelming, especially after you go to a high school tournament where everything is like old fashioned. Everybody is it's all about business. And then you come, even like on Saturday and then on Sunday, you come to the kids tournament, and oh my God, so loud and so crazy. I like telling the story. I got my little one to the mat, and we're just waiting, and so there's 2 kids on the mat. One parent on the left is screaming, the other one on the right is screaming. Both kids are crying. So much fun.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, it's fun.
Yeah. The youth tournament is very interesting. I'm 30 years old now, and I can confidently say I still don't miss the youth tournaments. I've been out for a long time, and I still have zero desire to go back. I have a little son now. He's 15 months, and I guess I get it. Parents get hyper protective and super passionate. They want their kids to succeed so bad, and it's like, you got to just take a step back. You got to take a step back, and then it's just not that big of a deal.
Mm. And I also feel like kids burn out, especially if you put that much pressure on them.
Oh gosh, yeah. I had many teammates and guys that came back to the sport, thankfully, years later, but that were superstars. Kids that were winning 2, 3 youth titles, and maybe they even squeaked the state title their freshman year, and they quit. They quit because they've had enough. They burnt out. Yeah, I've seen it.
And especially, and we don't want weight to be also on top of that.
Yeah, you're already stressed for sure.
So, okay, since we talked about we don't want to lose more than this much weight, now let's just talk about why is it bad to lose a lot of weight?
I mean, gosh, there's so many things: your cognitive ability, your mental state, your physical state. In an absolute worst case scenarios, and this is why they developed this rule. I mean, death has occurred. It's exceptionally rare, but it has. People have cut so much weight that they get kidney failure and they die. And that was in the 80s and 90s where people were cutting 20, even 30 pounds in a week. I mean, it was literally insanity. But yeah, so the short answer is cutting too much weight, you won't feel well. Your cognitive ability doesn't work. Just everything depletes, and then you're not training well, you're not feeling well, so it becomes a very miserable time.
Okay. Oh, let's go more into the red flags and all the things that we potentially might be doing wrong. Hopefully not. I just really feel like it's very easy to do the wrong thing. Okay, let's just assume that we are talking about high schoolers, because I am a strong believer, and I think you support that middle schoolers and elementary schoolers should just go with their walking weight. Whatever weight they are, they need to be there. It's when you start to,
Correct. Yeah.
it's when you have to adjust your weight for the weight bracket you're in is when the weight loss really comes in place. And as much as we hate the brackets, I mean, as a coach, I'm sure you've been in a situation, you only have so many slots and you have so many people.
No, I was just gonna say, it's the beauty of the sport, beauty and the tough part of the sport is, there's only so many spots, but that's kind of, got to be the better person. And that's why I like it. You just got to focus on the training part.
Okay. What red flags are we looking for? Just what tells us that we're doing something wrong?
Gosh, I mean, there's a lot because it just can get so a slippery slope. And I hope I'm not giving any ideas, but some of the red flags is, first, I want to say there's no easy way to do it right. There's no gimmick. There's no, this is going to make it so much. That's not true. There are ways to make it easier, but it just takes discipline. But the red flags, again, are, if your kids are looking extra irritable, where they're obviously deprived, they're crabby, they're tired, their school performances, dropping, their social life is affected, all these things, those are the warning signs. Some physical warning signs outside of just strength depletion, yellowing of the eyes is a really big one. That is indicating, kidneys are starting to not function. So if you ever see an athlete or your child with yellowing eyes, that's a big, hey, maybe go get medical help, or that kid needs to get food in them and liquids ASAP.
Okay, and as a parent, let's say I am trying to manage my child weight, and what else should I be considering besides the number on a scale?
Yeah, it's just, it sounds repetitive, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's so important. The scale is always secondary. If you are getting better, feeling better, loving the sport, that's going to go so much further in the long run than I made weight. And, you honestly have to even kind of ignore your teammates. The only other person, and hopefully I would think your coach, is a positive influence. And that's not, unfortunately not always the case. But a good coach is not going to force you to go any weight. They're going to talk to you, give you options, and, you guys decide together. But that number is always secondary.
Okay, so, well, let's say we're already there. We have a low energy. We're tired. What do we do?
Yep. Well, there's a couple things. You're always going to be a little tired, right? Get down to weight. That's just the name of the game. You're not going to feel perfect. It's all about re-energizing, rehydrating, getting the right things into you. And it kind of depends on a time frame. Again, if we're the day before weigh-ins, you might just have to kind of deal with it. Unfortunately, that's just the tough it out method if it's not too terrible. If we are a week out, then it's like, okay, well, you need to, make sure we're doing the correct things. Water, salt, again, that honey stuff, getting carbs, just eating. I have a philosophy. It's energy in, energy out. You got to feed the body to get performance out. So that's definitely the indicator.
Okay, well, since our main audience are girls and girls' families, in girls' wrestling especially, what are the things should we be looking for from the standpoint of growth, puberty, and hormones?
Yeah, gosh, that is a tricky, touchy subject. Hormones play a lot of factor, and I've been, fortunate to coach some really, really amazing female athletes that did a good job, and it was kind of a learning process myself when I first got into the female side of it. But one I would say is understanding your cycle. As crazy as that sounds, like what's normal for you is going up 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever it is what is your normality? A second is what do you lose during the night? You're going to go to bed. What do you float? That's what I call it floating weight. What do you lose? And these little things will help you manage your weight better. Second is forgiveness. As goofy as that sounds, like relax. Forgive your body. It's cool. It's normal. You're functioning. You really just kind of want to understand all of those pieces where what is normal for you. That way you can kind of operate around it. And then from there, you can lose the weight. I don't want to speak too much on specific hormones just because that takes quite a bit of education to really know, how your estrogen's affected, your proestrogen, your testosterone, all of that. But again, the main point is understand your cycle, how you're feeling, what's normal, and as uncomfortable as it might be, communicate with your coach. Especially, I know that's very tough for some girls sometimes to talk to a male coach. And if that's not somebody you could talk to, find a middle person, maybe a parent, maybe somebody to be open with so you're not bottling it all in.
I love seeing more women, former wrestlers on the mat coaching other girls. But there is obviously a lot more male coaches. And so what kind of adjustments did you have to make to work with the girls?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate, first off, to have an incredible set of young ladies that I coached at when I was at Lakes Community High School out of Lake Villa. They were extremely receptive, so I was lucky. But I'd say the biggest difference that I had ended up finding with my girls versus my guys is girls just simply responded so much better to tons of positive feedback. Tons. And no matter what, I was constantly trying to be, positive and good and encouraging. And that doesn't necessarily say I was being soft by any means. I pushed these girls, but it was always met with, I understand, I'm with you. And I genuinely meant it. I think the girls responded to just not feeling alone on a journey. And, that's just the biggest impact. That's not talking technical aspects, which there's definitely some differences there. Girls are hyper flexible, hyper mobile. And I had to learn moves that change that. But as far as just a mental approach, the biggest thing was positivity. And as silly as it sounds, lots of hugs. Lots of hugs were given.
Oh, yes. And I know I have seen some of your girls on the mat and the girls that were on the lightweights and you had the heavyweights and you worked with all the different types of girls.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I it's been a lot of fun with, every size and shape of girls. And I guess my 2 cents on this, whether you're a little 100-pounder or 235-pounder female athlete, is take pride in it. You're an athlete. You're not, this size, that size, small, big, whatever. You're an athlete. You care about your sport. And I hope these girls take pride in that.
I think that's all the time we have for today, but I still have so many questions. So I'm thinking I'm going to bring Devin back and we will continue this conversation next week. Thank you for tuning in into today's episode. If you enjoyed the discussion, make sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have a question or topic you would want us to cover? Drop us a message on social media or email us at ilgirlswrestling@gmail.com.